And we have been working with our clients to be sure that they have press rooms, online newsrooms that the media can access their experts, their video, their all their assets. Unfortunately, not all our clients are where they need to be yet, and so they're still kind of applying their media relations in the old-fashioned way of email, and of course some of them are tracking their reporters through Twitter, but we have been urging all of them to get the expert bios and all of their stories online where they can be their own media outlet and control all of their messaging.
Exactly so. So we're going to be talking about how one particular way that you can get involved in increasing your media relations effectiveness. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the Global Digital Journalism Study. It's done by a group called Oriella PR Network. They do it every year. And this 2012 one was a lot about influence and how journalists and bloggers are looking more for experts and credible sources. So this comes back to what Chris was saying about making sure that your stories and your experts are easily accessible through your newsroom. Now, we do know from many newsroom studies that journalists and bloggers are visiting your newsrooms, and even the public is starting to visit your newsroom. So it's becoming more and more important, and as we move more into content marketing, and which of course is a lot of storytelling, which fits perfectly for PR because we know how to tell stories, but that content has to be housed somewhere. So your newsroom is becoming more and more important for many, many different reasons. But the one we're going to talk about today is about stories, developing stories, using influencers, using your experts, and working together with bloggers and journalists to develop a story. So this is from the Global Journalism Report. Sorry, I just hear that my phone is still on. I want to turn it off. So they said there's been a big shift away from the crowdsourcing. So I'm sure you've been aware of that for the last few years. Journalists have been watching social media and trying to see what everyone is saying. And they're going a little bit away from that now, and they're preferring to go to a trusted source. So in some ways, this is a return to the more traditional approach to journalism. But in the same breath, it's also being done in a new way because it's all being done online and it's being done with technology. So here are their 4 suggestions. Articulate the point of view that defines your brand. Now, I saw another comment the other day that really just resonated with me. And it said, if you want to be a thought leader, you have to have leading thoughts. And isn't that wonderful, Chris? I just loved it.
I think that's really great. It should be our motto.
Exactly so. If you don't have a point of view that defines your brand, you are not going to be a thought leader. So you have to put out that point of view. You have to make sure that every piece of news content that is out there articulates this point of view that defines your brand. What is your vision? Why are you a thought leader? Put out all your leading thoughts so that we know what you're on about. And then build a network of supporters. This is something that's been said many times. You need to build the network long before you need it. So you need to do the work. Find out who blogs about the subjects that you have expert knowledge about. Find out who else, perhaps in these higher education institutions, you could partner with. Perhaps in your business you have something that also could work with some of the research that's being done at a higher education institution. I'm across the road from Caltech, and I know that many of their research projects end up in startups. My business is in the LA County Business Technology Center, which is the incubator for all these tech startups. And they work with the Caltech NASA scientists all the time. That's very smart. Chris, I'm sure you know from dealing with the educational institutions that there must be a wealth of stuff that businesses could work together with academics.
Oh yes, that's been going on for a long time, but with the economy the way it's been, Sal, that's become even more important. And you see a lot of business education partnerships occurring. And I was going to comment too on the network of supporters. You know, social media really lends itself to that.
Mm-hmm.
Twitter is a real quid pro quo. If you follow someone, they're going to follow you, and they're going to help to amplify your message. So all those kinds of supporters, people that you work with, people who are like-minded about a topic that you might have an expert in and that you may be wanting to promote, you can get your supporters to help get your story out there through social media.
Exactly so. And then the point number 3 is you need to tell the story across all platforms. This doesn't mean you have to duplicate the story and blast everybody with the same content across every single platform, but it does mean you need to integrate your messaging. So, you know, we've known for years that when you put out a message, you look at all your audiences and you adapt the message for each audience. It's still the same message, but it's being adapted and interpreted to each audience, and you have to do the same thing online. You will find, if you do your research, that you do not have exactly the same people on Facebook as you have on Twitter, as you have on Pinterest, as you have on Reddit. They all have their own demographics. They have their own interests. They have their own community mores and rules. So yes, you are telling the same story, but you're telling it differently so that it is tailored for each platform.
That's really important.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say that's really important in higher education because your alumni are going to need to hear the story a little differently than your prospective students, but the story itself is still a good one to get out to all the audiences. So we tell our clients to repurpose everything they do for each of their different publications, their different social media channels, even events on the road if you're doing prospective student expos. You know, there's a way to tell your story there too.
Exactly. So what they're looking for is credibility. Brands want to make their voice heard, but what you need to do is A, have that clear point of view, express it across all the platforms, and build this network of supporters. So this is also from the Oriella study. What would be your first port of call when researching a story? And it's interviews with corporate spokespeople face-to-face. That's the one. You will see that press releases also are still a big one. It was in 2011 more, it's gone down in 2012. The spokespeople's gone up in 2012. So you need to start thinking about how could you get your corporate spokespeople more visible so that when these journalists and bloggers come looking and they're researching a story and they start doing searches and perhaps they end up on your website or they look in your newsroom, are they going to immediately find really interesting looking spokespeople, greatly credible? We know they're experts, and what do they have to offer? Because what we're looking at is the emergence of the digital journalist. Things are very different in the newsrooms today. It is not like it used to be. These guys are working much harder. They're under a lot of pressure. they have a lot of assets they have to get together to tell a story. Every single one of these media outlets has a website. That means they can use text, images, graphics, videos, music, audio, whatever. And they are using all of these things because they've also learned over the years to watch their analytics and to see what kind of content drives reader engagement. And they've learned that when you have more visual assets with a story, you get more views, you get more readers, you get more viewers. That's money in the bank for them, because when they have eyeballs, they can sell advertising. And so they are pushing all their journalists to come up with more assets to tell the story.
You know, that's really true. I am married to a journalist, and I used to be so envious of his job because once he wrote his story, his day was done, and he could come home and not think about anything until he was back in the newsroom the next day. But that has really changed. Now he is updating the website story through the evening. He's adding to it. He's finding new spokespeople to add quotes. He's looking for assets. He's always being asked for images or video that would go along with the story on the website. His day is never done now, really.
Exactly so. I can remember the journalists, being so frazzled because they had a 24-hour deadline. The guys that were working in the daily newspapers, Chris, you must remember that then.
Absolutely, that's what Dave was doing.
Exactly. So there was, oh, it's awful. I have a 5 p.m. deadline. Now it's like, excuse me, I have a deadline every second of the day.
That's right.
And they say they long for the luxury of having a 24-hour deadline.
That's right. And so the lesson, Sal, is the easier we can make it for the reporters, the more credibility and the more help they're going to see in you, and they're going to come back over and over if you can help them get that story out easily.
Exactly so. So the journalist, to me today, the picture that I get is kind of like this one-man band trying to be all things to all people. And sometimes they just can't. I mean, there's no way. So you're absolutely right. If we can deliver that to them and say, you need an image, here you go, you need this, you need that, let me give it to you. That's going to make you a fantastic resource. So what is it that they want? Here's the list. They want experts and they want the assets. So you need to have a newsroom that's going to be able to deliver all this kind of content. When somebody comes to your newsroom, a journalist in particular, they want to see everything right away. They do not want to have to go searching. They don't want to say, where's the press contact now? Wait, hang on a minute. Oh, let me look around here. I was on one yesterday, and I eventually found the press contact. It is there, but it's buried under something else, and it's way at the bottom of the page. They're not going to do that.
Or if you only have your press contact with an email that they have to fill out a form and send an email, they're not going to bother.
No, they won't do that either. And if it's after hours, or if the email says pr@company.com, I know they don't like that. They want a real person, and if possible, they want your email and your cell phone and your LinkedIn and your Twitter so they can actually get hold of you. Because we have to realize, as much as their job has changed, that means our job has changed, because this thing is called media relations. So whatever the heck the media is doing, we have to do it as well. So if they are working long hours and updating things in the middle of the night, guess who they're going to be calling? So we just, you have to have this newsroom that will be, it looks like a news page. It has to have the ability to to find all your other social content. If they find a link somewhere, let's say someone tweets a story that you had put out. The journalist is searching for something on a story. They see this tweet and they think, well, that looks interesting. Let me go and take a look at it. They land on your site and they see there's a media room. Then they come to the media room and it doesn't have much on it, just a list of press releases. They go, I wonder if they actually have an expert that could talk on this subject. Nothing there. Well, I wonder if they have videos. Maybe they've, because I'm going to need a video. Nothing there. Do you see what I mean? Then within 2 seconds, they're going to go, oh, this is no good to me, and they're going to move on. You may have everything they need, but if they can't find it, they're going to move on. So you have to have the links to your images on Flickr, your YouTube, your image gallery, your video gallery. You need to have all your press contacts, your experts, your story ideas. Everything needs to be there, available with one click. So we were just looking at one story that you possibly could have expanded on. This was something that was going on in Newport Beach. So this, as you saw here, this is the Newport Beach newsroom. So one of the stories that they have is that there's a company in Newport Beach that has a very new product made from seaweed, and they're using it in a spa, and it has apparently amazing remedy for dry and damaged skin. They could have gone to look for an expert in dry skin. There is one in Newport Beach, in fact. They could have found an expert in the healing properties of seaweed. Lo and behold, there's one at UC Irvine down the road from them. They could have traced the Irish roots of this practice. In their articles, it talks about the fact that this is Irish seaweed. And there is an Irish seaweed research group. They could have spoken to them. They could have got all these experts together and really worked up a very interesting story about the benefits and the history of seaweed and skincare. And it would have come across then as a really good educational article with lots of credible experts. Pardon me, man. I've had a little cough this week. So does that sound logical to you, Chris, to do something like that?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I think anything you can do to make the search for the topic that the reporter might be looking for as comprehensive as possible and to make it sound interesting, that is what's going to get their attention.
Well, we all know that if you pitch a story to a journalist and it's all about you and it's about your product and about your service, they're probably going to raise an eyebrow and tell you that the ad department is down the corridor. But if you can do something like this where it isn't straightforward a pitch for your product, but it's a genuine, interesting news story with lots of credible experts involved, you're still going to come out as the hero because it's going to be your story. And your guys will be quoted.
And it's exactly what we were talking about before, Sal. It's making it easy for the reporter. I mean, here's a story that is fully fleshed out with lots of different people to quote.
Right.
So it looks like the reporter has done a lot of interviews and a lot of work, and you've made it very easy for them to put a whole package together.
Right. So you need to create a database of experts within your company and all their areas of expertise. Then find out what projects they're working on and figure out how you could leverage that into a news story with visual assets. And one of the things that I think a PR department is going to have at their fingertips is the ability to do these visual assets. If you don't have the resources and you don't have the availability, you don't have a graphic designer, you don't have video people within your company and there's no budget for them, then you need to figure out who you can partner with and how you can get them, because it's really, really important, as Chris was saying. that if you can put the story together, you're going to win. This is a quote from Stanford University. And they said, we believe journalists, scholars, and researchers can and should be natural collaborators. So, that just goes back to how you could have done that seaweed story. You absolutely can collaborate. So reach out with a story idea based on your expert's knowledge, and then include other experts and invite the journalists to develop the story with you. So we know that the news organizations are short on time and resources. The journalist, as we said, is running around like a chicken without a head trying to do everything. But if you can be there as the resource, you're going to, as Chris was saying, they will come back to you time and again. So I have put together just a couple of ideas that I came across just to give you, just to get the process started, get your little thought buds going. So ABC News recently did a story on college binge drinking. So what if you were a drug rehab and education nonprofit, and you did a lot of education in schools and colleges about drugs and alcohol? If you could tie into something like the National Alcohol and Drug Addiction Recovery Month, and then partner with other health experts and perhaps develop a more in-depth story about binge drinking, how that might lead to addiction, what the long-term results are, that would make a really good story.
Yes, and don't forget the college aspect on that one, Sal. Somebody from student life at a local college might be willing to talk about what they're doing to educate students about alcoholism.
Right. What tends to happen, I think, is that, take that one for instance, that if you're a nonprofit that does drug education and rehab, you see a story like that and you go, oh, college binge drinking. We could say something about that. But then it becomes so focused on you that it might not be the good follow-up to the story. But if you just open your viewpoint and say, let me include other experts and develop the story, that's more likely to get the media coverage. So this one is one that was actually done a couple of years ago. And there's a lingerie retailer here in the States who sells online, and one of her big lines is exercise bras. And she had a series of videos taken of women running on treadmills, and it was called the bounce test. And she tested all these different running bras, which was a great idea, and it was great content, but it just kind of never went anywhere. Nobody really picked up on it. So we pitched this idea to them to look to see if there was any bigger story here. And indeed, there is a UK university researcher who spends all her time talking about the health risks to women who exercise because of the damage to their breasts. So this is the bounce test videos. And you can see here that what we did was an interview with Dr. Joanna Skur at Portsmouth in UK, and that is still up there, but they have never updated this. So you can see back here, this was in 2007. They got a lot of coverage, okay, even on Fox News. But they have a huge missed opportunity. Look at this now in 2012. Sorry, let me go back there. Dr. Joanna Skur is still doing all this. She's updating all the time. She's just put out a whole new report. And the lingerie person she was working with before has not kept in contact with her and is not still partnering with her, hasn't taken this forward. And so they're no longer being mentioned in these stories. The stories are still happening, but they're not part of it anymore. So that's a huge missed opportunity.
It surely is a good story and lesson learned about keeping up with your contacts. And once you develop a relationship like that, to nurture it and to use it, there probably were lots of opportunities that Dr. Scher would have been happy to talk about her research for the lingerie store if she had been asked.
Absolutely. So here's a really good one that's been done by the San Francisco Estuary Institute's Aquatic Science Center and Stanford University. So they did a story with KQED's Science and Environment program. It's called Quest. And they were looking at the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta, which is one of California's most vital water sources, and what's happened to it over the years. So they created an interactive feature which is called Envisioning California's Delta as It Was. It was launched on KQED's website in May, and it had 20 pages of interactive maps, charts, all kinds of wonderful stuff. So you can see some of it here. And if you look down, oh, where did it go? Hold on. All right, so if you look down the bottom here, you'll see all these pages. They had 22 pages. And there the name San Francisco Estuary Institute is mentioned in all of it. And what they did, the Institute and Stanford worked together to produce all of these visuals for the story. And they worked with the KQED journalists, gave them all the data, and then the journalists wrote the story. So here are our takeaways for today. You have to use your newsroom to highlight your experts. You need a database of experts in your newsroom. They've got to be as easily visible as your press contacts. And you need to have a good description of what kind of experts are they. You need a link to their bio page. You need a link to stories and projects that they're working on, or stories the media might be interested in. You also have to develop, of course, the partners and the other experts that you can build relationships with. You have to have the resources to make your multimedia assets. Because a good story, a big rounded out story like this, is not going to get told without pictures and videos and graphics and infographics and maps and whatever. That's the point of doing one of these really big in-depth stories. And if you don't have the resources to do this, then figure out a way to find someone who can do it for you that won't break the bank. Then post your digital assets in your newsroom and make them easily available. Give the journalists and the bloggers the source code and the embed code so that they can take it, and with one copy, paste, and click, boom, they have it and they can use it. And then work with your journalists and other researchers and other experts so that you can expand and develop the story. You need to start the nucleus of the story. Use your expert and their project and their knowledge to find a story. So say like the lingerie one. Okay, they have a story about damage to breast tissue. And they'd already figured out that this was an issue for women. But they hadn't really looked at the bigger picture. Now you have to say, okay, this looks like a story to me. What can I do with it? And you've got to start putting together some digital assets and then start saying, well, who would be interested in this? And where can I find other researchers? Oh, we have this person in the UK. Good. Let's talk to her and see if she'd be interested. Oh, she is interested. Great. Now, what has she got? What can I pull in there? Now I've got a much bigger story. What else can I do? Now I can go and pitch it to more journalists. But eventually you have this wonderful, rich piece of information that the media would just salivate to have. So that's the story. What do you...
Not only that, but you also have fabulous content for your own website.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're all looking for content because that's what draws people to our websites. So this is, both a lesson for media relations as well as putting new content on your website. And some of you may actually have a story perking on your website that if you look at it the way Sal's been describing it, you might actually be able to put a package together and go to a reporter to talk about how to further develop it.
So if you have questions, you can put them in the little chat feature, and we can take your questions now.
We shouldn't forget TV and radio too, Sal, because some stories do have audio, and radio is short on staff as well as, the newspapers are, so they would love to have a group of people from different organizations come together and say, we have a great story for you if you'll help us develop it, and come and get some audio recording to go along with the panel discussion or whatever it happens to be. And of course, television the same way.
Right. There's a question about the deck. We are recording it, and it'll be up in the press feed newsroom in about a week, and I will send you all an email when that's available. So there's a question, do the journalists want a packaged, corporately produced video, or is it simply a tool for you to help tell the story? There has been research done on that, and it is increasing. I can't remember the exact numbers right off the top of my head now, but I know that the number of media outlets taking a fully produced video has gone up almost double from like last year to this year.
Yes, you have to be careful when you're doing it that it's not an outright advertisement for your company or your product, but they would probably entertain it. And of course, they would also entertain getting it in pieces. So you can actually say, you can put this story together. We've given you these quotes, and you use this first, and then you have this part of the interview with this expert, and you want to use that second, and then here's the end of the story, and use that third, and you package it all together and let them do the final edit, and they get around some of the rules and regulations of the FCC that way.
That's another reason why we have the ability to break up your press releases into pieces in our newsroom, which was originally referred to as a social media news release, but it was requested by journalists exactly for that reason. So it has a section which says core news facts, and then it has a section for quotes, and then it has a section where the images are and a section where the videos are. And it all has the source code immediately available for the journalist, so they can take the bits and pieces, and the quotes are there, the video pieces are there, and they can, as you say, they can pick and choose and put it together the way they want. But that is the reason that they want it like that, and that's why our newsroom makes it possible for you to post your press release. You can still post it in the traditional way if you want. You just put it all together into item content. But if you want to do it like this and you want to put a package together, then it has all the pieces for you to do that. Okay, well, we don't have any more questions, so thanks very much, everybody. I hope this has been interesting. Hang on a minute, I might have one more question.
It was great being on with you, Sal.
I have one from Karen. She says, I'm worried that infographics are too common now. Are journalists tired of them? Karen, I think if it's just another infographic, they probably are tired of them. But I have found that media for years, long before this, have always been interested in statistics. If you can get the statistics to tell the story, and you have a great graphic artist who can put it in a way that makes it easy for people to immediately get what all these stats are about, and you can make the infographic tell the story quickly, there's nothing worse than a long list of stats, because it's just like, oh my God, I'm never going to read all this. But if I can get it in one quick visual that totally, I get it, like right away. I look at it and I go, oh my God, I get it. They do like that. All right, guys, so thanks a lot. Thanks to Chris for being with us. We appreciate your
Thank
time.
you for inviting me.
Yeah. And we'll do another one in a month's time. And in about a week, you should be getting an email to tell you where the video is in the press feed newsroom. And if you haven't downloaded our 2012 online newsroom and media relations survey, that is available in our press feed newsroom as well. And if you're interested, yeah, thanks, Chris. Thanks for being with us. And if you want a demo, please just send me an email and I can organize to give you a demo of the newsroom. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next month.